In the brief instincts before the transition of Entropy and Extus, I was hoping that I would get Godzilla and Anguirus back. As the board appeared, I saw that my wish was half granted. I had Godzilla back, but no Anguirus. I would have preferred both, but despite Anguirus' neat abilities, I would have had to pick Godzilla if I had to pick between the two. Extus has two different colored temples, white and pink, a pyramid, what looks like some modern buildings, and two other icons I couldn't figure out at the time. The new bosses were Kamunga, Gorosaurus, and not Ghidorah, who I was dreading to see, let alone fight. With Godzilla back, I was excited again and eager to explore, yet still cautious. I went over to the quiz level first, just before. This time, Face's questions were more random than ever.
Do elephants breathe?
Yes.
Have you been molested by a family member?
No.
Have you ever raped anyone?
No.
Is green your favorite color?
No.
Is computer the pinnacle of modern technology?
Yes.
Are you a tough guy?
Yes.
Can you fly?
No.
Can you stand on your head?
Yes.
Do you hate raccoons?
No.
Do you feel lame?
No.
Would you like a new monster?
Yes.
Will you miss me?
Yes. I was happy to get a new monster, but that last question bothered me. Will you miss me? Is Face referring to when I finish the game? I thought. Since the revelation of game's truly otherwise nature, I wasn't sure what to think of Face or anything else in the game. But something about this last statement gave me a genuine feeling of sadness from Face. As I was thinking about this, the game had gone back to the board. I had a new monster, but I had no idea who was it supposed to be. The sprite had a slight resemblance to Rodan, but the head was totally off. I moved this mysterious newcomer to a white temple icon and started the level. When I started the level, this screen appeared with the text, "Find the gem," presumably instructions for beating the level. After that, I got my new look at this playable monster. A hairy dark blue creature with bat wings and a skull-like face named Solomon. And I also found out that my path was blocked by a beam of light and a small pillar with a plate on it. I figured that the beam of light was blocking the exit, so I have to find the gem and drop it on the plate to deactivate the beam. How exactly I was going to do that? I didn't know. There wasn't anything in the original game requiring you to find an item to beat a level. I had to find out when I obtained the gem. The only direction I had to go was left, so on I proceed. Solomon was a very interesting monster, to say the least. He was capable of both flight and a heat beam spamming, both which proved to be very useful. He could also kick and slash with his wings, but he couldn't duck. The White Temple's music was a vocalizing core. It's such a hard way to describe, but it had a very holy sound to it. It wasn't long before I start running into waves of strange new enemies. They did little to stop me. I ran past them with slashing and didn't take any damage. There was a pause between each wave of enemies. After you have killed about 10, there wouldn't be any for a minute. Then a wave would appear. After 5 minutes, I noticed holes in the floor and ceiling. Those mouthed creatures were rapidly flying up and down, so I had timed my jumps carefully, because I didn't know if I'd get shot at. Luckily, I managed to get through without a scratch. Just lucky, I guess. After that, I found myself at the end of the hallway, facing some kind of mini-boss monster. It moved fast and some kind of projectile that it shot in 4 directions. But I killed it quite easily using Solomon's heat beam. When the battle was over, I had my gem, which was inside the creature's head. I found that if I could pick it up and hold my gem by walking over to it and holding down B, I made the long trek back to the start, disposed the gem on the plate, which deactivated the beam. I left the stage and was shown what was probably the strangest quirk relating to the Solomon monster. Every time you complete a stage or defeat a boss with Solomon, this screen appears. I have no idea what
Still the best, 1973
means. Neither the date nor the phrase has any meaning or significance to me that I could think of, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. The next level I played was the one I called Bronze Pyramids. I used Godzilla, and I found out that he had been leveled up to 12 since I last played as him in Dementia. The Bronze Pyramids were fairly normal as far as these levels go, but the visuals were quite interesting, almost usually colorful and lively. The music had a faintly Egyptian style to it. It was slow and mysterious sounding. I strolled through the level fighting off various enemies. None of them were too difficult, although the ants could be a pain if you ran into too many at once. My favorite enemy was this giant reptile I encountered halfway through. At the end of the level, I came to a giant pyramid, and I edged in yet another mini-boss fight. Although this one was a bit different because I had to fight 2 of these monsters at the same time. Eventually, I could have dealt with them easily, but both of them at once was challenging. But I sped things up by tricking one of the twin beasts into barbecuing his brother by jumping when he uses his flame breath. After defeating the twin monsters, I noticed something strange after returning to the board. I was now able to move my monster piece anywhere on the board without limits. Normally in the original game, Godzilla could only move 2 spaces each turn, and Mothra could only move 4. I want to try out Solomon some more, so I moved him into one of the brown pillar looking icons with colored dots and started the level. When I got to the level, I then realized what the level icon represents. Totem poles. I was greeted by 2 of them right at the beginning. The music had a Native American sound to it. It seems to be using the same instruments as the Entropy Forest. It was noticeably different, but just foreboding. I walked around for 3 minutes without anything else in sight besides me, the totem poles. I didn't realize it until then, but I wasn't expecting another level with nothing alive in it. After all the activity in Entropy, walking by all those multicolored faces, this unnerving level left me feeling like I was being watched. Only about 10 minutes after I started Extus, I was already halfway through. After getting back from the totem pole level, I tried out one of the TV screens to see how strange they were this time. Even more strange than before, apparently. The music for this was the Uranus theme. I switched back to Godzilla to play another level, and this level was quite a surprise! It was a normal city level! The colors were gloomy, but even still, this was quite a shock! This was the kind of level I would expect in a Godzilla game, and I was kind of mad that I didn't get to play it earlier. The music was the Earth theme. I found it strange that a level fitting a Godzilla game would show up this late, but there's no point crying over spilled milk, I suppose. I moved Solomon over to a grayish-green icon, which turned out to be a giant high-tech laboratory of some sort. Lots of mechanical drones in this level, but Solomon cleared through them, just like the White Temple enemies. The music was a gritty, instructional beat. There was also a strange flying cyborg enemy, which was annoying because it would fly away when you jumped to attack it. Also of interest were the large Extus tanks holding some kind of monster inside. As you guessed, sometimes the monsters awaken and shatter through the glass. I tried to get past the Extus tanks as fast as possible because the monsters inside proved to be vicious little bastards upon release. At the end of the level was an elevator, which I used to go down to the bottom of the level where the exit was. Along the way, I was shot by a security drone. I couldn't leave the elevator, so my only defense was the heat beam. The last level type is the simple thing I called the Heart Temple for obvious reasons. Nothing but a big hallway filled with floating enemies shaped like human hearts. They're incapable of causing you damage, so what you do is run through the level, smashing as many as you can to get all the power-ups. One run through these levels would get the life meter back up to fill, and I would greatly appreciate these levels later. The Heart Temple's music reminded me of a circus tune. It had an overly cheerful sound to it, which gave the level a really weird feel. Having seen all the level types, I choose to fight Gorosaurus using Solomon. The music for this fight was Ghidorah's theme. It was during this fight I realized that Solomon is overpowered. A single will-aimed slash can take down as many as 4 of enemies' life bars. Due to this, the fight was over very quickly. Gorosaurus had no projectile attacks or anything else that could outmatch Solomon's deadly claws. But I kept the fight going on just long enough to see if Gorosaurus would use his iconic kangaroo kick, and I was greatly pleased when he did it. Even though I knew Solomon was my fighting ace, I used Godzilla to battle Kumonga, just for variety. Though I briefly considered using Mothra for this fight, but of course, Godzilla won out. Kumonga was also a simple opponent, no heat beams or anything. He attacks by jumping on you, stabbing with his Madabint, and also using his signature webbing stream to paralyze you. Once you get webbed, Kumonga will sometimes take the opportunity to attack you. But it's mostly a way to buy some time, like Ghidorah backing you in the corner until the time runs out. His music was Hedorah's theme. With Gorosaurus and Kumonga defeated, I was at the end of Extus. Before I fought Nakadora, there was something I had to do. I wasn't expecting much from it, but for the documentary's sake, I took a good look at the other TV screen. This is what it was. I don't think there was much reason behind the TV screens. If I were to guess, I'd say it's sometimes random, uncontrolled manifestations of the cartridge's abilities. Or maybe all these mistakes perfectly make sense to the game. Who knows? Anyway, Mr. Fawcett's theme was the Saturn music. It was time for the opponent I have been dreading, not Ghidorah. Although I gained courage with Solomon's combat advantages, I was still nervous. And when I started the fight, I was immediately confused. My opponent was not Ghidorah. I defeated the imposter with a few strikes and then not Mogera appeared. Then it made perfect sense. In order to get to not Ghidorah, I had to battle all the previous replacements first. And battle them I did. After him, not Varan appeared. And then, not Hedorah. Then, not Baragon. After him, not Gigan appeared. And finally, not Mechagodzilla. I tore my way through them, and finally I made it to not Ghidorah, who was a Dorat. Once I had stopped laughing, I destroyed him with only 2 slashes. The music stopped, and I thought I was going back to the board. But the battle wasn't over yet. The real fight was against the Chimera, a monstrous hybrid of all the replacement beasts. This was by far the most difficult boss yet. Every attack of his would cut down whole life bars per use, while attacks against him were greatly weakened. Solomon's Slash, for example, was now lucky to take away half of the life bar. During this fight, I gained a great appreciation for 2 things: the boss fight time limit and the heart tempo. Had it not been for those things, I might have never beaten this boss. To take down this behemoth, I came up with a strategy. I would switch between Godzilla and Solomon as one began to get dangerously low on health. I would take him through the heart temple while fighting Chimera with the other. I should count my blessing that Chimera couldn't regain lost health. A very interesting thing about Chimera was the colored section on his different body parts. So each body part effectively had its own life meter. The head was invincible as long as the body parts were present and would always be the last part to be destroyed. In addition to being difficult, it was the longest fight so far. I tried to remember how many times I got taken out of the fight by the timer, but I lost count around 13. Eventually, I had destroyed all the components but the head, which now flew around on its own at an incredible speed. Chimera fought well, but I was extremely determined, and once he was reduced to a head, he no longer had the power to defeat Solomon, and he beamed him into oblivion. And then, the Chimera was no more. I was exhausted after that drawn-out fight, and worried that might affect my performance in the End World Chase level. The head icon was replaced, but not by the Hell Beast face. Instead, it was a crucifix. I was completely stunned. I wasn't excited about seeing the Hell Beast icon again, but if there's only one good thing about those levels, it's that they were predictable. I had a basic idea of what to expect, but now, here, I was at the end, and the icon was completely different. What did it mean, and why crucifix? It made me very uneasy. I attempted to start the level with Solomon, but I couldn't. I got this notice that simply stated, Solomon can't enter here. It didn't say why, but I think maybe it had to do with Solomon's demonic appearance. Since Solomon was out of the question, I went with Godzilla instead. Once I saw the level, the crucifix made sense. The level was a graveyard. I was still on edge, thinking that this was some kind of trick. The last level always involved running from the demonic beast, and I wasn't going to be fooled into thinking that this would be kind of any trick. So I started out running. But after a minute without interruption, I slowed down. It was during this time that the music caught my attention. I knew it sounds familiar when I first heard it, but it took a while before I realized what it was. An 8-bit rendition of Prayer for Peace from the original Godzilla film. A very sad, powerful song, even in this form. At 2 minutes in the level, I encountered something that I wasn't sure how to react. My first instinct was to run, but this blue statue being simply floated in the place, and I was completely compelled just to stare at it for a time. Since this was a grave, and it was floating over a chapel, I guess this was some kind of angel watching over the deceased. It gave me a strange but warm feeling. I wouldn't say happy, but I felt like I was in peace somehow. I had never seen this being before, yet it seems very familiar to me. Just as I was going to leave, the Hell Beast appeared, and its presence warped the music into a terrifying discord screeching and transformed the level, desecrating the tombstones as a new ground appeared, comprised of blood-soaked bodies. I could feel my heart beating out of control. I had no chance of escape with the monster that close. It launched with the kill, but the angel got in its way. The demon roared and started clawing through the angel's leg, and tears of blood streamed from her eyes. I wanted to save the angel, but there was nothing I could do. I had to honor its sacrifice and run. And so, I ran through the hellish landscape as fast as I could. The beast soon caught up with me, still swallowing the body of the angel who had turned off its legs. And this sight made my terror changed into anger. I now found myself hating this horrible monster. There was no doubt in my mind that it was pure evil, and I wanted it to die. When I got to the end, I remembered how it responded to my insulted trance. I spoke to it and said, "You're going to pay." This was its response. I had no idea how I would follow up on that threat. And nothing could have prepared me for the horrors of the final world, Zenith.